To understand who we're talking about, I want to ask you if you remember this commercial.
Nina, the new magical fragrance by Nina Ricci.
The model you just saw was found dead under mysterious circumstances.
She was just 20 years old. Since then, she's modeled for Marc Jacobs, Nina Ricci, Donna Karan, and Vera Wang.
This unresolved case had long been forgotten, but a new wave of interest has been sparked by the release of documents related to the scandalous businessman, the so-called Epstein list. Alongside big names like Bill Clinton, Stephen Hawking, Leonardo DiCaprio, and others, the name of Russian model Ruslana Korshunova, who mysteriously died in 2008, has surfaced. A very young girl who was predicted to have a star-studded career fell out of the window of her 9th-floor apartment in downtown Manhattan 4 days before her 21st birthday. I immediately thought that there was something suspicious about this story, considering Korshunova's connection to the Epstein case. But it turned out that this story is even more tangled. Shortly before her death, the girl had become involved in a totalitarian cult disguised as a personal growth center. In short, I decided that the life and death of Ruslana deserved a detailed investigation. And believe me, I unearthed a lot of interesting and frightening details. Thanks to this advertisement for Nina Ricci perfume, Ruslana Korshunova's face became known worldwide. With her beautiful long hair, she was nicknamed the Russian Rapunzel. At the time, there was a high demand for Slavic models in the industry, and Ruslana fit the ideal standard. Runways, advertising contracts, it seemed like she was at the peak of her fame. But what led the young woman to such a tragic end? Ruslana Korshunova was born in Russia on July 2, 1987. Shortly after, her entire family moved to Kazakhstan. When Ruslana was 5 years old, her father passed away, leaving her mother alone with 2 children. At the age of 15, she was invited to participate in a photo shoot for All Asia magazine, which was distributed on planes of the airline with the same name. One issue caught the attention of British scout Debbie Jones, who immediately took an interest in the promising model. Through the magazine's editorial office, she found Ruslana's phone number and offered her a contract with the major agency Models One. This marked the beginning of the girl's meteoric career. In 2005, she was named one of the top discoveries of New York Fashion Week. By 2008, she had participated in advertising campaigns for many prestigious brands, appeared on magazine covers, and even auditioned for the lead role in the movie Perfume. But somewhere along the way, something went wrong, and recently unearthed information might shed light on what went awry in her life. In 2005, it became known that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in luring young girls into his illicit activities. He promised them money, modeling careers, and Victoria's Secret Angel titles. However, this often ended with ruined mental health and blackmail. The businessman secretly took photos and videos of these models. Private planes, nicknamed the Lolita Express, flew to his private island. It's not hard to guess that on board were, let's say, models transported for meetings with Epstein's high-profile clients. The release documents contain about 150 names, but not all of them were necessarily Epstein's clients or even visited the island. Their presence on Epstein's list indicates that they had some form of contact with the businessman. Many well-known personalities were among them. All of them denied knowing about Epstein's crimes or being involved in them. However, some paid compensation to the victims. For instance, Prince Andrew did not admit guilt, but paid a settlement. Epstein himself was found dead in his jail cell in 2019. The official version is suicide. Mysteriously, the surveillance cameras were not working at that exact moment. But that's not the focus now. What interested me was that among the names released in the human trafficking case was Ruslana Korshunova. The court established that in 2006, she was a passenger on that very Lolita Express. It is not known for sure what happened to her on the island, but according to her close ones, after this trip, she began to experience a personal crisis, which led her to search for herself and eventually join a cult. I would like to note that the trip occurred 2 years before the girl's death. The training center, Rose of the World, opened in 1999. It was modeled after the LifeSpring personal growth courses, which had been embroiled in scandals since the 1970s. Psychological journals referred to the company as a psychocult and accused it of using covert control and pressure techniques, preventing people from leaving the community. Initially, the courses were phenomenally successful, with several 100,000 Americans attending, and the company boasted that 90% of their participants gave extremely positive feedback about their experience. However, over time, more and more course participants began to complain of severe stress, emerging mental disorders, and ruined careers and lives. For example, among LifeSpring's participants was a man who, after completing the training, was convinced that God had asked him to sacrifice his young son. Another woman believed she could control traffic lights. Soon, reports of fatal incidents appeared in the press. LifeSpring's founders were overwhelmed by lawsuits and journalistic investigations, but during its existence, the company spawned many clones, as it actively trained new coach trainers to expand the business. One such clone was Rose of the World. This sect claimed its mission was the harmonious and comprehensive development of a person in the material world, mental sphere, emotional realm, and spiritual growth. In reality, these training sessions were designed to suppress consciousness. After completing several stages of the courses, life within the sect becomes the only reality. For example, a shy young man easily meets girls during role-playing games, and an unsuccessful businessman resolves business issues. But then, they return to the real world and find that everything is different. People experience a crisis that can have unpredictable consequences. Such symptoms were observed by friends and relatives of Ruslana Korshunova and her model friend Anastasia, who attended the personal growth courses with her and subsequently jumped out of a window. Anastasia died in 2009. During the training, participants were asked to talk about the worst things in their lives. Ruslana spoke enthusiastically, sharing about her father's death, her failed romance, crying publicly, and laughing hysterically. Anastasia and Ruslana enrolled in increasingly expensive and intensive training sessions. After a few months, friends began to notice that Ruslana and Anastasia were behaving differently. Anastasia started arguments and burst into tears, missing castings. Ruslana became more aggressive and for the first time started using profanity. Both lost a lot of weight. Another case that occurred in 2018 with a participant of similar personal growth courses might explain the mysterious deaths of the girls. Tatiana attended a training session based on the LifeSpring methodology. Participants were asked to complete rather strange tasks, such as dressing up as homeless people, hugging 25 strangers on the street, or even having public to overcome their insecurities. According to her relatives, after completing the basic course, Tatiana gained confidence and her career took off. She wanted to finish her training but suddenly became withdrawn, nervous, and soon committed suicide. It was found that Tatiana failed to achieve one of the goals set by the trainer. She developed a personality disorder, which led to her death. Likely, a similar story happened to Ruslana Korshunova and Anastasia. At some point, Rose of the World became their only reality. Perhaps they too were unable to complete certain tasks and decided to end their lives. However, I wouldn't rule out the version that she was eliminated as an unwanted witness after visiting Epstein's Island. During those years, the first investigation was underway, which eventually was skillfully hushed up. Another version was suggested by Ruslana's mother, Valentina. According to her, on the eve of her death, Ruslana was in a good mood and had many plans, including attending a birthday party. On Ruslana's table, there was a note with her plans for the next day, including return the book to the library. The model's mother is convinced that a person planning to die would not write such things. She believes that Ruslana was murdered, noting that her body fell too far from the balcony, about 15 meters, indicating she was thrown out of the window. Valentina thinks the motive was money, as she did not receive a cent of the millions Ruslana earned. All the money was taken by her agent through court, along with his lawyers and supposed friends of her daughter, including her ex-boyfriend. Whatever the case, Ruslana and other girls cannot be brought back, and we will always remember the Russian Rapunzel as young and beautiful, with a bright and memorable face from the perfume advertisement. Write in the comments which version you find more plausible, and be sure to support the channel with a subscription.